Hello and welcome. You're watching Destination Draft Day, your one-stop spot for all things NFL draft, college football, and NFL. I am Michael Rochman, your host, joined by Nick Durst. We are here for a great day of college football, NFL draft, NFL discussion, and we hope you guys are too. We appreciate everyone that's coming into view. Leave your comments in the comment section. We'll try to get to it, and we'll try to answer any questions, any prompted discussions that you guys offer us, and we really look forward to everything happening today. So let us know. And yeah, we look forward to it. But first and foremost, Nick, how are you doing today?
Michael, I'm doing well. Happy to be back here. Our first Monday show of the season, the NFL season, which is always a good time. How are you doing? You got to be doing pretty well after your Patriots do what they always do, which is beat the Jets and destroy rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, feeling pretty good about the victory for the Patriots. Happy about it. But it's a really exciting week for college football and NFL combined. So getting to see all that happen, all the major games, whether they ended up turning into upsets or not, it was still just a great week of college football, great week of NFL play. Watching, Ravens Chiefs last night was a phenomenal game. So really everything in between was great opportunity to really check out everything going on.
Certainly, it was definitely interesting, that's for sure. And of course, we have the usual chatter of the weekend. Too many penalties being called and whatnot. The referees trying to put on a show. But the other thing we always get consistency is that quarterbacks get injured or there's injuries. So we had Tyrod Taylor go out. Andy Dalton went out. And the question now, specifically more so with the Bears, is going to be what's the immediate future of the quarterback position here? Because the Texans, it might be that Davis Mills will start the next game, but pretty sure Tyrod's going to get the job back when he comes back from injury. With the Bears, though, Fields leads them to the comeback. Are they going to go back to Dalton? I don't know about that.
Well, Dalton had him in the lead, but yeah, I think Fields showed some nice stuff. Definitely the interception wasn't great. He kind of made a point blank interception that was real. It was a rookie mistake, but I think overall the Bears could realistically move on to Fields now that he's gotten his play time, gotten the major chunk. The injury, obviously unfortunate, but we saw the same situation happen for the Chargers last year where Justin Herbert came in due to injury when people didn't think he'd be ready, and then he went on to have a great season. Obviously, Justin Fields off to a little bit of a slower start than Justin Herbert maybe, but still a solid showing for the rookie, and I think he kind of pushed the ball downfield in a way that will encourage Bears fans, and I think it was a promising start for a young quarterback going against a pretty solid defense in the Bengals. I think they're a little bit underrated right now.
No doubt about it. The Bengals, I think, I don't know. I liked what I saw. I saw some really smart plays by Joe Burrow, but then of course he had the turnovers. One of the smartest things I saw was he kind of third and 10. He just scrambled and he just stepped out of bounds and he kind of just made it look so he got a hit from a defender pushing out of bounds to get the flag. So that was pretty smart, but obviously some turnovers there to clean up some issues. My biggest takeaway from this weekend is the Raiders are legit, Michael. We always question, what are they doing in free agency? What are they doing in trades? What are they doing in the draft? But Gruden's an evil genius, and Carr got hurt, but he came back in, and the Steelers, who made a statement in week 1 when they beat the Bills, they get beat by the Raiders in Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great start for the Raiders, and it shows that there's a little bit of more logic in front offices than a lot of people like to give credit for. A lot of people were ready to throw them to the wolves because they got rid of some promising offensive line pieces, ready to really criticize the entire team because they added in a wide receiver and then cut him, and then they didn't really add much outside of that. But Henry Ruggs put up a great performance. Darren Waller, obviously one of the best tight ends in the league. I think Hunter Renfrow is a very underrated slot option in the NFL. I think the Raiders are legit, and maybe they aren't going to continue on this pace of beating really good teams that should be making the playoffs. But I do think that this is a very promising start and a type of start that they need. And I think really the big question is, can they push through in the West? The Chargers had their hiccups, which is a good sign for the Raiders' hopes. You look at the Broncos, who are 2-0, but, they haven't had to go against as strong of teams. And then the Chiefs obviously are going to be a playoff team, and I would assume they win the West. But, if you're the Raiders, you aren't just trying to get second place in the West. You're trying to win the West. You're trying to win the AFC. You're trying to win the Super Bowl, and, they're off to a good start.
Speaking of the Chiefs, they lose to the Ravens. Great job by the Ravens there to complete the win there. And I think the Ravens absolutely needed it. And this just goes to further, drive home my point, which I think is that I think the Chiefs are what the Chiefs were. So it's going to be very tough for them to go back to the Super Bowl. We saw last week the Browns hung tough with them. They should have won. The Bills with the big bounce back over your pick, the Dolphins, 35-0. It's tight. It's close up there at the top of the AFC. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I told you that the last two undefeated teams in the AFC would be the Raiders and the Broncos, you probably would have been very confused. So definitely a little bit of chaos early on, and it's still anyone's race.
Yeah, Broncos have a great shot to go to 3-0 next week. I know you said, they maybe are just a quarterback away from a playoff team. Bridgewater's look good. Right? They're playing the Jets next week in Denver. I think that's going to be an easy win for them. But other things we saw Jameis Winston be Jameis Winston. So last week he had a great game. This week he was not looking good. What did you think about that game? And is this, again, you and I have been very high on Matt Rule now for the second season here. He's here. He's doing a great job, and the Panthers haven't been 2-0 in quite some time.
Yeah, it was absolutely an impressive performance by the Panthers. I didn't expect it to go this way. I thought the Saints, even if Winston took a step back, I thought the Saints just had so much roster talent that it would work out regardless, and the Saints would be winning this one. Didn't happen at all. Panthers came out, really made a huge statement. And, whether or not Darnold is legit, I think regardless, they've set up the rest of this roster quite well. Very young defense, but still very promising one. J.C. Horn had a great game, almost entirely avoided by offenses already as such a young corner. Just shows so much about him. DJ Moore was able to get off to a good start. Christian McCaffrey obviously is just one of the most dependable players for the offensive production, and the Panthers relied on him heavily. It's very impressive what the Panthers have done 2 weeks in. And now, really, they just got to prove that they can stick around and continue that. They have a fairly easy matchup against the Texans for Thursday Night Football without Tyrod Taylor. I think they should very well be the favorite in that game. But after that, things pick up a little bit. But they got to go against the Cowboys. They got to go against the Eagles. They got to go against the Vikings. And while those aren't maybe the world beaters of the NFL, they still should pose a nice challenge to kind of get a better assessment on what the Panthers are this season.
Rick says Sam Darnold was showing why he was highly sought after quarterback and organization has no idea about to work. So obviously the Jets, they don't know what they're doing, but I don't know. I'm not sold yet on Sam Darnold, Michael. I really love what I saw from him week one. Obviously he played better yesterday. I don't know what the future is for Sam Darnold beyond this year. Honestly, it's a winter commitment. But when you are surrounded by an offensive line and some offensive weapons, specifically one of the top players in the game, Christian McCaffrey, of course you're going to look better than you have in the past.
Yeah, there's still time for Darnold to have his issues, but so far it's definitely a promising start. You love what Joe Brady has done for him, kind of made this offense simplified. I think confidence is one of the biggest things for a quarterback, especially a young QB. And, I think you kind of saw it. That first Jets game, he didn't look phenomenal, but he was able to get going a little bit. And because he got that win, because he put up a decent stat line, I think that confidence rolls over to the Saints, and he puts up a very nice game. now if he can continue to build on that, then I think he's going to be in for possibly being the future of the Panthers. And, right now, just with the way that their schedule is kind of looking, I don't think it's crazy to say that this could be a playoff team when it's all said and done. And I know it's early and a lot of things could happen, but Rule's done a nice job. They've already been more competitive than they've been expected to for what he's done there. And now, with Darnold at the helm, they seem to be rolling a little bit better. They just beat the Saints, who was a team I thought was going to make the playoffs. I mean, it's not guaranteed. Obviously, it's only 2 weeks in, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Panthers take up a wild card spot and be one of those surprise teams and make it in.
Interesting. But, speaking of playoff teams and the NFC South, Buccaneers, man, how do you not pick this team at this point to say they're going to repeat? Gronkowski's on pace for, I think, 37 touchdowns. He's got 4 through 2 weeks. He's looking like an all-pro again. It's really incredible, and you might have to start considering Tom Brady for MVP this season.
Yeah, everything looks very nice. I think it's important that they rest Brady a little bit. I know Brady wouldn't want to, but I think, some weeks you got to try to go a little run heavy just to make sure that the wheels don't fall off by going too fast. Get a little tire change in there, a little pit stop. And I mean, the Bucs just have so much talent that the job is easy. And when you have an easy job, Brady is going to capitalize on that more than anyone. So definitely a phenomenal start for the Bucs. Very promising way to go. And, as long as they can keep this up, stay healthy, then I don't see how they slow down. And also, apparently Bruce Arians confirmed that they are talking to Richard Sherman about joining the team as well.
Richard Sherman, to me, I think is done. I think he really is done. He was not good last year, in my opinion. But we'll see. I mean, maybe they signed Cam Newton to put him in the Taysom Hill package, right? So,
yeah, possibly.
Larry Fitzgerald, come on down. I mean, they're just stacked. It's crazy all over the place. Such great talent, and the team the team that really you think is going to go at it with them is playing tonight. But we'll talk about the Packers and Lions at the end of the show. The NFC West keeps chugging along, but there was a little snafu there with the Seahawks as the Titans come from behind to tie it and then force overtime and win it. Tremendous win for the Titans. They needed this one big time, and they come out of there going another 1-1. What did you think about this game, Michael?
1 sec. I'm trying to get connected to the Wi-Fi so that.
All right. So Rick says
disconnect like crazy, but
he thinks the Bucs are going to go 11-6 and don't repeat. Mark it down. I don't think they're going to lose 6 games in the regular season. I'd be surprised. Maybe they go like 15-2, 14-3, something like that. I don't think they're going to lose 6 games. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I think the Bucs are going to be a little bit stronger than that. Even if you don't think that they repeat, I think they're still in for a very strong regular season. Just so far, what we've seen, they just seem dominant. They had their little slip-ups, and I'm sure they'll have some games that they lose, but I think we're looking at 14-3, 13-4, probably at the lowest.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I was mentioning the Seahawks losing, so I think the Magic's done there with the Seahawks. Maybe they make the playoffs as the last wild card, but I think they're going to be breaking it up after the season. The Rams narrowly win the game. We did see Easton's debut season, and the Rams beat the Colts 27-24. The 49ers, they beat the Eagles. And the Cardinals win again. The Vikings, I think, are just tough luck here with their schedule because we both have a good team. Kirk Cousins looked great, but he played Kyle Amari, who looked incredible. 4 more touchdowns, 3 passing, another rush. Did throw 2 interceptions, but he's another MVP candidate. What do you make of the NFC West from this weekend?
Yeah, I think what we see in the NFC West is kind of what is going to be the case this whole season. It's going to be chaotic. And there's going to be tight losses for most of these teams when they do lose, and most likely some very big wins. I think every single team in this division has a strong case as to why you say, okay, they're my favorite to win. But at the same time, no one would be ridiculous for saying any of the four would be their case to be fourth place. So it's a tight division. There is four very talented teams that you could maybe argue all are deserving of being in playoffs when the season comes to an end. I'd have a hard time seeing anyone lower than like 7-10 for the record. And I just expect that it'll be one of those divisions where it's like everyone's 11-6 to 7-10 because of how vicious they are and just how they're knocking off each other because no one can really get a clean lead.
Yeah, it's going to be very tight. The NFC East is also going to be very tight. Cowboys somehow get the win. They should not have won that game, but they do win. Obviously, Washington football team and the Eagles are 1-1, and the Giants are 0-2. So I think it's going to be 7 wins, 8 wins, probably wins the division. I haven't seen anything from any of these 4 teams that makes me think, wow, they're going to be great. But yeah, we'll continue to talk about that every week. It's going to be a storyline. We'll get to some college football here momentarily, but first, since we're talking NFL, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, and that is Rochman's Rookies of the Week, Week 2 edition.
In Week 2 of the NFL, there was plenty of promising rookie performances, but mostly on the defensive side of the balls. The QB position all around the league, a little lower than usual, but there were still some very strong performances. And the only offense player for this list, wide receiver Rondale Moore, 7 receptions, 114 yards with a touchdown, a key piece to Arizona's offensive attack. There is plenty of promising play here. You look around at this league, and there's plenty of promising rookies around it, right? Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase. But Rondale Moore was one of the more electric playmakers in college football, had some injuries, really set him off to the sideline, and now he's healthy. He's in a very creative offensive system with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think he's going to really kind of continue to have these kind of dynamite games. I think he's someone that, if you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective, it might be a little boomer bust in that regard, because who knows if he's really going to put up these major plays or if he's just going to kind of contribute in a smaller role, help take the top off of a defense. But this is a guy that, with the ball in his hands, he can create plays, and it's great to see him healthy. You want to see talents like this just able to get out there. One of the biggest knocks on him when he entered the NFL was his size. He had a very tiny frame, but you didn't see this type of playmaking, this type of elusiveness and just ability to create. And Rondale Moore brings that to the table, and he put up a great week 2. So it's very early in the season. I'm really excited to see what he can do and what the future is for Rondale Moore in this offense. The next rookie of the week is Gregory Rousseau out of Buffalo. The edge rusher put up 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Look, Gregory Rousseau was someone that was considered a top 5 pick in the offseason, and then he opted out. And as the season went along, people started to reevaluate the tape, and they weren't as high on him. He didn't have the athleticism that a lot of people were kind of hoping for, so the testing numbers kind of dropped him a little bit, but he still put up a phenomenal week, really showed a dominant ability to get to the passer, both at the college level, and now it's continued to the NFL. Showed some promising play in the preseason. This week, almost like a coming out party for him because he just dominated, and it was absolutely huge. Miami's offensive line has been a issue this season, and it's going to hold them back. But still, Gregory Rousseau put together a dominant performance and is someone to keep an eye on for Buffalo, which, a team that was already contending, adding a guy like Rousseau. And if he really splashes and continues to play at a level like this, maybe not 2 sacks every week, but still just great play, then that could be a huge needle thread for Buffalo and push them further in the conversation to being a contender.
Yeah, and you kept saying around the draft that the Bills should be taking a running back, and I was arguing with you saying, no, they need to be building this to beat the Chiefs. They need to get a defensive end or an edge rusher. And that's exactly what Rousseau has been, and obviously it was tremendous. And I think he's going to continue his success, especially going against some of these weaker offensive lines, such as the Dolphins or the Jets.
off to a great start so far. And speaking about great starts, how about this cornerback class? Talked about J.C. Horn a little bit earlier, got his first career interception, pass deflection. New Orleans was avoiding this guy. And as a rookie corner, that is not common. A lot of times these QBs want to test you, but J.C. Horn was shutting down his side of the field, making this Saints offense rather limited in where they could attack. J.C. Horn has shown some veteran presence in his first weeks of an NFL career, and I think he is going to be special. This entire defensive back class, though, looks very good. Asante Samuel also got his first career interception, 2 pass deflections, 4 tackles. And Patrick Surtain II, 1 interception, 1 pass deflection, 4 tackles. All 3 of these guys were highly regarded when it came to what they were going to do in this draft. I loved all of them. I thought this class as a whole had some really big studs in terms of just capabilities, what they were going to do when it came to the NFL. And, we're seeing it already happen. Even guys that aren't necessarily on this list, like a Greg Newsome, has shown some promise to where, this cornerback class should be one that we're talking about very far down the line as a great class that really kind of elevated the entire NFL talent level. Surtain had a great interception against the Jaguars, went against a very strong DJ Chark. Asante Samuel went against Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper is a very talented wide receiver. You saw him last week against Tampa Bay, had a great week. But Amari Cooper got blanked by Asante Samuel, held to very limited stats. And I don't know, if you're looking for just young, talented defensive studs, it's filled with them in this draft class. And guys like J.C. Horn, guys like Asante Samuel Jr., guys like Patrick Surtain II lead the way. But, man, it is deep.
Yeah, Michael.
So, Nick, as you were talking
definitely. Well, I guess we had a little lag here, but yeah, the defensive positions are going to be gobbling up these spots every week here on the Rockman Truckers of the Week. At this point, there just hasn't been too many offensive standouts, and 2 weeks in here, Trevor Lawrence he's struggling a bit. He's not used to losing. He's lost more games now in 2 weeks than he has the whole rest of his life. What do you make so far of Lawrence in the pros?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely some issues that need to be worked out. He can sometimes get a little too aggressive in terms of trying to throw holes that aren't there, and it causes in turnovers. And I think it's important that the Jaguars themselves simplify this offense. Even if it results in some early losses, I think it's big to kind of get him having a good stat line. With weapons like DJ Chark, weapons like Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, they have the ability to throw downfield, but I think you need to still treat this like a young QB, a rookie QB that, while he is this transcendent talent and is believed to be this generational piece for this team, I think you need to treat him like he's, just someone that could very well bust because, the huge part of these rookie quarterbacks is making sure that they come in with confidence and then elevate that play consistently. And I don't feel like the Jags have done a good job of putting Trevor Lawrence in that spot for success. Trevor Lawrence, still needs to be held accountable, though. He needs to get better decision-making, be a little bit more disciplined with the ball in his hand. But I think there's still plenty of promise that's shown on tape that you should still trust Trevor Lawrence to become a great QB.
Yeah, I think all the tools are there. Obviously, it's very talented, so just give him some time. His alma mater, though, Clemson, they're struggling to score. Michael put up 14 points for Georgia Tech this weekend. They do win, though. What do you make of Clemson here for this season and moving forward here as far as contending for championships?
There are reasons for optimism with this defense and stuff, but man, the offense has got to get going. DJ Uiagalelei has not really taken this team under his control. The weapons haven't really been separating. I think the run game needs to be depended on a little bit more because that hasn't really elevated into much. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding this team. And right now, the path they're on, they're not going to get there to the college football playoff. I know that their schedule isn't the toughest. North Carolina State lost to Mississippi State. Then they go Boston College without Phil Dracovic, Syracuse, Pitt. There's some challenges on that schedule, but at the same time, it's not the toughest. But they're going to slip up somewhere if they don't really get things going. This offense needs to really bring it in these next, 10 weeks or whatever, or 9 games, these final 9 games in the conference championship. The offense needs to step it up, because even if they win these games, but they're squeaking by, the committee is going to have no issue saying we're not putting them in the playoff. I understand they're Clemson, and I understand the history that comes with it, but the eye test matters more than anything. And, an 11-1 Clemson that struggles to put up 20 points a game is not going to get in over a, SEC team that's 10-2, but is really competing in every game they're in and only has losses to Alabama and Georgia, at least in my opinion. I understand that a lot of people would give this huge, respect to a conference champion. But if you're Clemson that's winning 14-10 against Georgia Tech, or it was 14-8, or if you're winning, 21-14 against North Carolina State, you're not doing enough to be considered this top team. And I think that the committee would take that upon themselves and say, okay, I know this is Clemson. I know this is a team that has a lot of respect over the years, but they are not that team right now. And, there's other teams that also need to get going. Oklahoma struggling again against Nebraska is really concerning. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Oklahoma. I
mean, I think
Oklahoma, you thought was going to be this,
Go ahead.
firing all cylinders offense. If they lost the game, you would think, okay, it was a shootout. But it doesn't really seem to be the case here, the way Oklahoma's playing early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked to see Oklahoma even stay in the top 4. You look at these rankings that were recently just dropped, and it's Alabama at 1, Georgia at 2, Oregon at 3, Oklahoma at 4, Iowa and Penn State at 5 and 6. And right. I don't know. I mean, for me, Cincinnati is probably one of the more impressive teams of those post-Alabama, Georgia squads. And even they had a little bit of struggle this week where they weren't really shaking off Indiana as quickly as they could. I think Iowa gets in there right now, at least for me. Oregon probably gets it just out of, they beat Ohio State and they're undefeated. But I don't know. I don't trust this field very much outside of Alabama and Georgia. And that's going to lead to probably some ugly first-round games unless another team really steps up and gets going as this, last 9 weeks, conference championship, whatever, really gets going. Until then, though, I'm just expecting an Alabama-Georgia championship, and we'll probably see that matchup also in the conference championship as well.
Well, I think it's time to start showing Penn State a little respect here. Obviously up to 6, but you can make the case they should be the 4th-ranked team right now. I think, we'll see what happens with Iowa, but I would say Penn State is probably the favorite to win the Big Ten at this point if they just continue doing what they've been doing, because that win against Auburn is pretty big, bigger than any other team's going to have for a non-conference week 3 game. James Franklin's got these guys, ready to go, and they've been getting some really good quarterback play as well. I think Penn State, they've got a legit chance to run the table this season.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the Big Ten East. I've already expressed that I have enjoyed Maryland so far this season, but they had a very bad game against Illinois, so who knows? Michigan looks all right. Purdue looks all right. Ohio State could still get going at any second. Michigan State, though, is a team that I think is very interesting. They've been off to a great start, really just put the hammer down on Miami, which is impressive. I know that Miami got demolished by Alabama, but I still think they're a pretty solid team in the grand scheme of things. And I think Michigan State going in there and controlling that game as well as they did is huge for them. And I know they have Nebraska next week. Maybe not too big games until that Michigan game on October 30th, but if Michigan State gets going, we've seen them kind of have these seasons where they get up into that playoff picture. Mel Tucker in year 2, which almost needs an asterisk because he joined in with the team in like August last year. So very impressive to see what Michigan State is doing already. And, if they keep this thing going, they could very well compete for that Big Ten title as well.
Absolutely. I think the other thing we should note is beyond Oregon, Pac-12 is done. So if Oregon doesn't run the table, it'll be yet another season where nobody from the Pac-12 is in the championship contention. Arizona State, they got outplayed by BYU that late game. But BYU, well, let's give them some credit here. No Zach Wilson, no problem so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is plenty of credit to go to BYU. I think there is just so much talent that has kind of continued on from Zach Wilson. And I think Zach Wilson was definitely the identity of that team last year. But I think there's not enough credit given to just how well that team was constructed and how much talent is still on that roster right now. If I am USC and I want this head coach that I'm confident is going to succeed in the West Coast, I'm looking at Kalani Sitake and I'm saying, look, this is a guy that has built somewhat of a very dominant program at BYU. He's gotten the passing game going. Both Hall and Wilson obviously able to succeed. Even if you think Wilson kind of helped him out a lot, I think you can still look at the fact that, they were able to use Wilson to his full strength and really open up the offense for him to succeed. And I think, Sitake's a guy that has succeeded enough at BYU that if USC were to pull the trigger and make sure they go and get him, he would be an absolute stud for them. Obviously, Sitake has some experience in terms of offensive line and tight end coaching. He has most of his experience on the defensive side of things, but he also is a very Pac-12 experienced type of guy. Was a coach at Utah for a while, was a coach at Oregon State, really got his first head coaching opportunity with BYU in 2016 and turned that program around rather well. He had a very good season his first year, then he had a down year, but things got going again, and they went from a 7-6 team to 11-1 last year, 3-0 right now, beating some Pac-12 opponents. I mean, that's what you want at USC, is to win the Pac-12, is to establish yourself as a strong team. There weren't many teams better than BYU last year, and you can, obviously make the case that there weren't as many opportunities to be that next tier of powerhouse. At USC, you have that opportunity. So, if I'm looking at a dark horse candidate, Sitake is probably the guy that I would go for from USC.
And speaking of Utah, they are in a tailspin here. A lot of people said before the season they were going to win the Pac-12. They're 1-2. Not what you want to see if you're a fan of Utah. And we'll just, you mentioned Cincinnati earlier. They got a big win over Indiana, and Texas A&M. They take care of business against New Mexico, shutting them out. Iowa, we already talked about. They won again. Oregon, of course, beat Stony Brook. So the teams that are supposed to win here this past weekend did win. Other than that, it's really been hard to kind of say anything about this college football season beyond the fact that some teams are just not performing up to their standards.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like a year where Alabama is going to run away with it. Just very dominant on both sides of the ball. Bryce Young looks like a stud. And, Georgia can contend. I think they have the running stable to really do that. They have the defense to hopefully hold Alabama in check. And I think it'll be a very fun game because, we just saw Florida keep it close. But Alabama, Georgia seems to probably be the determining matchup for who wins this year.
Yeah, I think I think Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M, they could really, all be in the mix. Obviously, Texas A&M, you mentioned on the show Friday, the big quarterback injury. What'd you see or like from Zach Calzada in there in his first start, sophomore for Texas A&M? When obviously, he played well. I mean, the team did put up a good amount of points in victory.
Yeah, I think the most important thing in this matchup is to note that, look, he bounced back. He struggled against Colorado, and it left some major question marks for what the future was for this QB spot. And, if Calzada was even going to be the QB next week. And I think, he wasn't dominant against New Mexico. He had only about a 60% completion percentage, still had an interception, but it was a good enough week to where you can feel confident in him to really kind of take control of this offense when needed. Obviously, this offense is going to run through Isaiah Spiller with Devin Arcane helping out, Anaya Smith getting manufactured touches, whether that's out of the backfield or in the slot. But yeah, there's still a lot of question marks, still a lot of major tests left for A&M, but this is a good week to kind of get back in control. Next week against Arkansas, I think, is huge for both sides. Arkansas to prove that they're legit and in this SEC, that they aren't going to miss any steps with Haynes King now out. Massive game, and one that we will probably be talking about on Friday.
And last but not least, of course, Rutgers wins again as predicted, 3-0. Offense looking good. Big game for them versus Michigan. And Michigan, I think, Michael, people are kind of sleeping on Michigan here just because of their failures the last few years. But I think they're a really solid team, and really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do in conference play this season.
Yeah, I think Michigan's elite this year. They aren't going to, I think elite. I wouldn't use that term yet, but I think the main issue that's always held Michigan back on these recent seasons that have kind of gotten them, hated on is because they didn't have a QB to kind of right the ship. Cade McNamara is righting the ship, and he's doing it well. He does his job, and that's the big thing that you need. They don't need this absolute dominant QB, but they need someone that is capable to, not mess this thing up. And McNamara has done that. And Michigan has a solid roster. They have a very talented defensive line. They have some very impressive linebackers. The cornerback unit, I think, has some solid experience with Daxton Hill at safety, which is huge. And then on the offensive side of things, they're really getting this run game going, which is phenomenal for them. I think that Michigan is going to be a team that, bounces back this year. I think they're going to beat Rutgers, beat Wisconsin. The big test is those games against Michigan State, against Indiana, against Penn State, against Maryland, against Ohio State. It's that back half of the season, those final 5 games. Can they pull through in that? Can they go, 4-1? And I'm sure in their minds they're saying, look, we're going 5-0 in that. But really, it's that challenge. Can they establish themselves as one of the great teams in the Big Ten? And if so, then, Harbaugh's going to stick around. I think the Michigan narrative is going to change up a little bit, and there's going to be some hope around the Wolverines' future.
Yeah, Wolverines stock watch, something to definitely keep an eye on. But now you're also looking at some players coming up here and what's going on in the past 2 or 3 weeks as well.
Yeah, so we're looking at this from a quarterly stock watch every 3 weeks of the regular season, and then after the postseason, we will take a look at this and talk about some of the prospects that have really kind of put their name in the conversation for the draft. And we'll talk about guys that have kind of risen up in day 3. Ideally, this is more of the round 4 range, but still, if someone's coming up and making a name for themselves, they could still be a late round sleeper, but still establishing themselves in a major way. And I think round 4 is kind of the name for this guy, even though he's been as dominant as he has. The positional value just isn't appreciated. And that's Zach Charbonnet, running back out of UCLA, has really put up some great performances, shown some great vision. I don't think he's the most athletic running back out there in college football, but he's shown some great decision-making, does it extremely quickly. He got shut down against Fresno State, and I think this is going to be a big test for him. Can he bounce back in this next week performance? But for UCLA, they are dependent on this run game, and Zach Charbonnet has been huge for them all season. Britton Brown, also in this backfield, I think is someone that could get drafted. But Charbonnet off to a great start and could continue rising if he continues to put up some great play. The next member to watch is a day 2 range riser, that second, third round type guy. And for me, that's Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver out of Boise State. You look around at what he does week in, week out for the Broncos, and he has just been an absolute stud. He can do it all really for Boise State. And I don't love the Boise State offense, but I think relying on Shakir has really helped this offense kind of just make sure that it works out. He had 8 catches for 78 yards against Oklahoma State. And overall, throughout the season, he's put up 335 yards over 3 games, 20 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He has some very impressive movement skills, very smooth in his route running. I think this is someone that probably gets in as a special teamer early, but is able to consistently build on that to establish a role in the NFL. And whether he's a third round pick, whether he's
We lost Michael here for some technical difficulties, but obviously Khalil Shakir there, he's got him moving from a day 3 to a day 2. Look at the rest of the list here. Michael's back, and he'll walk you through it.
Yeah, so for my day 1 guy, also sorry about that. For my day 1 guy, Trevor Penn, the offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, has really been getting a lot of attention when it comes to draft perspective. A huge mammoth of a guy that is really just athletic as they come for the offensive line position. Had his first game against Iowa State and really showcased some very impressive stuff for the young prospect. I think you kind of look around at what he brings to the NFL and that 6'7", 330-pound frame, his athleticism and just dominant play. Look, he is someone that is going to get attention as the season goes on. Spencer Brown, another Northern Iowa tackle, really showcased a great performance for the Panthers, and Penning just picked up right where he left off. I think, Northern Iowa apparently just knows how to make him because Trevor Penning is a stud, and I think he's going to be someone that really gets a lot of love as we get closer to the draft. And for the final guy, top 15, no one is off to a better start than Matt Corral in terms of draft stock. Really has entered into the conversation as that first quarterback. For me, I had him in my mock draft, not trying to do my own horn. Really, I just liked what I saw out of him. I didn't expect him to be off to as good a start as he has been, though. Really a solid season, showing some great ability to zip the ball in at multiple arm angles. Still needs to do a little bit better in terms of layering. I think he has some issues still, just trying to fit balls in windows. He still had some batted balls against Louisville that could really have easily went the other way and become a turnover. But Matt Corral is off to a great start. While Rattler and other QBs have kind of fallen off a little bit. So Matt Corral very much getting entertainment as the top QB in this class. And, this could very easily be your number 1 pick when it's all said and done. Matt Corral out of Ole Miss, working with Lane Kiffin, I think this is someone that is going to be extremely exciting at the NFL level. And I'm excited to see where he lands and how he finishes out the rest of the season. That's all we got for you today on Destination Draft Day. We want to thank everyone in the comments section.
Hold on, Michael. We got to get up Monday Night Football predictions.
Oh, Monday Night Football. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah, you kind of forget about the Lions from time to time. Listen, this is going to be a huge bounce back game for the Packers, I think, Aaron Rodgers. But I do think that Jared Goff and the Lions will still continue off last week. They're gonna keep it close, but I think ultimately Aaron Rodgers just a little too much there, and the Packers win, and the game is in Green Bay as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna say DeAndre Swift has a very impressive game, but Packers ultimately keep this one pretty far at reach. I think we're looking at a 31-17 type game. I think Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, both in for nice bounce back weeks. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers in that as well. But I'm really excited to see what happens because I think the Packers have a lot more potential than that 38-3 loss. And I think the Lions still have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and are excited to see what they can prove this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Dan Campbell can get out of his star players this season.
Absolutely. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, a very talented young rookie that, is these Monday night rookies, they get screwed out of potentially getting on Rockman's Rookies of the Week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, sorry, Eric Stokes. There's guys all around this roster, all around both rosters that really could get some attention. So keep an eye out for them. And if they do well enough, we'll give them a little shout out on Friday. But until then, thank you so much for everyone in the comment section. And thank you so much for all the viewers we had today. Also, thank you to LandryFootball.com for the platform to speak about the draft and all things after, college football, NFL, everything you need here on Destination Draft Day. We'll see you guys on Friday. Take care.